Hello, and welcome to the Student Experience podcast, where we will be chatting to members of the University of Suffolk community, giving them the opportunity to share their experience with us. I'm Sam, and I'm a member of the Student Experience team, and in today's episode, we're joined by Elise Martin-De-La-Torre, who is a disability and wellbeing advisor. We discussed her role, the support the disability and wellbeing team can provide to students, and her radio show she runs on disability advocacy. So, Elise, thanks for joining us today. Would you like to introduce yourself and your role at the university?
Hello, my name is Elise Martin-De-La-Torre. I haven't been at the university for very long at all, actually. It's probably been about 2 months, but I am a disability and wellbeing advisor in the student life team. It's lovely to be here. Thank you very much.
Oh, welcome to the university. It's great to have some new blood on the podcast. So
Yes.
Could you give us an overview of the Disability and Wellbeing Services team and the support that you provide and what we can expect from the team or students can expect?
Yeah, so we, like I've just said, our disability and wellbeing team kind of overarches the disability and wellbeing advisors and the disability and mental health advisors, which I know that you've had on the podcast in the past. My job is really supporting students to get what they need at the university to make their experience equitable or bring people up to par with those other students as much as possible. So it's a lot about reasonable adjustments and making sure that people have what they need in place when they start their studies, or if they're going through their studies and they're thinking, oh, I'm having a bit of a hard time and I don't quite know why and I don't know what's going on, we can always help. So we're a really good team. I sometimes sit down in the student centre, but we've got many other team members that kind of sit upstairs in our disability and wellbeing space, where we've got our pods, which are our confidential spaces, where students can kind of come and have conversations with us. They book appointments. Other things that we do, we've got Liz, who does the diagnostic assessments, so for ADHD, for dyslexia, and other things. But they do a really, really great job. I know that they're so busy all of the time, especially with the new student intake coming in right now. We also do mental health triage and support different referrals to different support agencies. So that's definitely kind of a disability and mental health role. But we kind of fall into that wellbeing, so we do a little bit of that as well. And then we have our in-house counselling service. So we have our lovely counsellors, which you have to do a self-referral to get access to that counselling. But obviously in my role, if you ever had any questions, I could talk you through that.
Oh, that's good to know.
We also have our wellbeing programme, Health Assured programme, which is a 24/7 helpline, a counselling helpline where all students can access it, and I think that there is a staff one as well. Not that I've looked at that too much.
Yes, there is. Sorry, I had to think about that. Yes, there is. You're right. Yeah, okay.
So they can sort of talk through things like stress and anxiety, debt, education pressures, lifestyle addictions, relationships, and legal stuff. Within the student life team, there's a lot of support. So if you ever did need something, the best place to go is that student centre and just pop in. Everybody's really lovely, they absolutely know where to send you for support, which is amazing. It's really
hub of information there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really, really important. So another thing that we do is when the disabled students allowance comes in for some students. So that is a study-related support. So if you had a longer-term condition or you had maybe an educational health and care plan at school or college, we know that kind of doesn't translate into higher education, so we kind of have to go through a different process, which is called a disabled students allowance, and that allows students to get things that they need. So that might be assistive tech, things like Dragon software or read and write, which really, really helped me as a student. Well, we'll get on to why I am in my role. That just being part of that process has always been a really, really positive experience for me. And I really like kind of seeing that kind of support for students there. So that's that more specific support, whereas the reasonable adjustments that I was talking about earlier, that's definitely much more of a kind of, we can put those things in place straight away. We can talk to lecturers about it. So it might be things like you need information broken down into chunks or explained in a different way, maybe like flowcharts or things like that, because we all don't like reading massive lots of texts, do we?
No, absolutely not. No, that's a really good thing to know, that you always hear about reasonable adjustments, so it's good to like have them broken down a bit more. Like you said, well, this is what one reasonable adjustment for one student might not suit them, but this is another thing we can try. So it's good to know those different things are in place.
And within our conversations with students, quite a lot of the time we're adapting and we're learning what students need. Yeah. So things like when COVID happened, I think a lot of the lectures turned to being recorded, and that was really beneficial for students. So a lot of courses do that still, and that's another common reasonable adjustment that we put in place a lot. But we kind of have a process that we tick through, and then if there's anything else that is kind of a little bit different for that student, then we can always write that in and speak to people, go out and find a bit more information about different services. Quite often the exams team or the extensions team are also really, really well linked in with us.
Wonderful. So it relies a lot on, like you said, those teams coming together and finding out what each team can do to help the students.
Absolutely. I think that's like the most important thing, isn't it? Working together and making sure that everything's joined up.
Yeah, definitely. Joined up is, like you said, that's really important, especially within the university, so everyone's coming from the same page and we're drawing on those different resources as well.
Absolutely. It's really important for me that we recognise that everybody has a different sort of starting place, and you're never going to come to the university in exactly the same way. So it's really important to kind of talk about those reasonable adjustments and make those a bit more normal. Yeah. Or make those a little bit more, I don't know what the word is, but just make it a bit more talked about and known about.
More visible,
really,
perhaps.
Really, really important. Yeah.
I mean, I guess as well for students to be aware of is it is really individualised.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, some students might not even be aware of some of the software like Dragon. Yeah. Right. Like Dragon, I used when I was a student. It's amazing. So students might not know about those sort of softwares. And
actually, as technology gets a bit better and a bit more advanced, we're starting to see those things creep onto our computer already. Yeah. I know that Word has got quite a good dictate function, and that's free if you've got Word.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's really, really great. And when I found out about it, I was so excited because I was like, I don't necessarily have to just use this one software. We've now got lots of different opportunities, and the Disability and Wellbeing Service can always help with that kind of stuff. If you're like, I don't really want to go through disabled students allowance, but I want to know what's out there for me, then we can really help with that kind of stuff as well. Try and keep my knowledge as up to date as possible. But really, really welcome students coming and telling me different things that are out there as well, because that's really important.
Like you said, it's constantly changing. Like you said, like technology is always evolving. So it's, and like we said earlier, like treating the student as an individual. It's like, well, this software might work with this student, but it might not necessarily benefit this student.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
it's always every day is so different, and I think that it's really good.
Fantastic. So thank you for sharing all that information. So can you discuss a bit more about yourself and working here? What first attracted you to this role? You kind of alluded a little bit at the beginning.
So what attracted me to this role? I think when I was looking at universities, I did look at this university as a really strong option because I'm a Suffolk girl. I lived in Ipswich. I don't anymore, but I lived in Ipswich. I live near the sea now, which is really nice. But I did look at this university. It was still establishing itself, so I kind of kept it in my mind, I guess, and always really liked the space, and it's right by the waterfront. It's beautiful here.
It is.
It really is
lovely.
And obviously, as a coastal kind of area. We're really diverse in kind of the spaces you can go, the places that you want to visit. You can have the seaside, you can have a bit of urban life, you can, get into London reasonably easy.
Yeah.
When I finished my university degree, I was looking at a job here, and it was a toss-up between a job in the disability and wellbeing team and a job in the voluntary sector. So I was going for both interviews, and I got the other job that wasn't at the university.
Okay.
And then I finished kind of, because it was a fixed term project that I was in for 2 years, and then that kind of ended, and I was looking on the university website again and the same job came up 2 years later.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, that's just meant to be,
Exactly.
isn't it? That's mine. So I was really, really lucky, and I do feel really, really lucky because the team's amazing.
Yeah, they are
and
great.
really,
team.
really, really, really supportive. And everybody's so nice. I'm still learning a lot, but it's always been in my mind. I think that's what I'm trying to say. The university's always been in my mind. It's always kind of flitted about, and now I'm here. And
we're very happy you're here.
I am. I definitely am loving it. It's good. It's a really good place to be.
So we know as well that you're no stranger to the microphone.
No.
You've been doing stuff with your own radio show and stuff. Do you want to chat a bit about that?
So I'm no stranger to a mic. No, in my face. I think the first question I asked was, how close do I need to be to the mic? So at the moment, I do a bit of work for Suffolk Sounds radio station. I used to do a bit of work for Felixstowe Radio as well. So I'm kind of in that media-y world. We've been doing quite a lot of out and about stuff recently,
Brilliant.
which has been really exciting. I really enjoy that, sort of off the cuff, kind of exploring disability. So the show is called DIScoverAbility, and I co-present it with two other people, Nat and Rob, who run the show together with me, and we just talk about everything disability, everything that is happening right now, and kind of whether it's good things or not so good things, because we don't want to shy away from disability as a hard subject to talk about sometimes, and it's not always easy, but I really, really enjoy that. That is like one of the things that I really look forward to during my week, is a little bit of media stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know, keeps me buzzy.
So how can people find that then?
Yeah, so you can search for, we're a community radio, so you can search online for Suffolk Sound, or I think that you can speak to Alexa.
Ooh.
And
wow.
And what is Siri. You can also speak to Siri and say play Suffolk Sound. I think that sometimes it's through TuneIn Radio. You have to look at it first. You have to say play Suffolk Sound on TuneIn, and then afterwards you can just say play Suffolk Sound, and it should come up. And so my show is every Wednesday morning from 9 till 10. And it's always a little bit different, and it's always a bit fun.
I'll definitely be tuning in.
Yeah.
I guess
Great.
one of the things you might be talking about at the moment is the Paralympics.
Yeah, absolutely. So this morning there was actually a conversation. I didn't go this morning because I wanted to be okay for this.
But I
I just thought 2 media things in one day is going to be too much. But it's really, it's just such a great thing to do. And I watched a bit of the Paralympics last night. I watched a bit of the wheelchair racing that they did last night, and that was really good. And I have sort of a background in swimming, and was quite, once upon a time, it was quite a while ago, but I was involved in that kind of high level sport and professional sport, but kind of decided that uni was my path and kind of took a different route. So I know lots of the swimming people, and I was cheering along to the people, and it's just really, really nice to see some of your friends exceed and go on to different things. And yeah, it does look beautiful, doesn't it? It always does. The stadiums.
So good to see it being out there, and it seems to have gained so much traction on like social media and like even things like TikTok, you see people like sharing it and things like that, and it is so inspiring. And like you said, when you know people, and that's incredible.
It is. Yeah, in the swimming world, it's I know quite a few of them, so it's really nice to kind of, and obviously they were quite young when I was coming up as well, so you know them from quite a long time. But it's, as I said, I sort of took a little bit of a different path, but I really, it's just nice to see it. It's nice to see it on a platform like that. I wish there was more of it, because I think that people don't want to see it just every 4 years.
Yeah.
I think that there's a really big market for talking about disability, as we do on the radio show and things like that. It's an all the time thing. For me, at least, anyway.
How did you get into the radio station, if you don't mind me asking?
So, I can't remember what it was. I think it was to do with my topic that I chose at university.
Okay.
Because I studied my undergraduate, so I studied at undergraduate level first, and I was looking kind of more broadly at student experience, disabled student experience, in higher education. And then I kind of decided, that was when kind of the world changed a bit.
Yep.
And I went into my master's in that year and did the same thing, but kind of a bit more in depth, and really was trying to work out what is disabled student experience, what is physical disabilities in particular, because I don't think that they get seen as much. And I'll explain now why that's so important to me. So I have cerebral palsy. I have hemiplegia down my right side. So that means that I can't really use the right side of my body in the same way as everybody else can. I do have some use, but it means that I get really, really tired. So I use an electric wheelchair to kind of limit some of that fatigue, and that just being able to live life and do the things that you want to do. So that's kind of where my love of really understanding why disabled students feel the way that they do in higher education, and also whether we can do anything to kind of really help that experience and connect people more. Definitely. Because I think when, particularly when young students are kind of coming out of high school, it can be a really, really difficult sort of age.
It can. And
we're coming into yet another space where it feels a little bit different, and people are making friends again, and it is a different experience if you've got a disability. And I think that for my role here at the university, I have a lot of empathy around kind of that student experience, because I've kind of done it.
Yeah.
And
you can relate to it, and
It, on a sort of neurodiverse level as well, I feel like I can kind of empathise with people. But yeah, it's just an amazing thing to be part of. And I really, people are so thankful, the students are so thankful that they're getting the support that that's a really, really positive thing. I've always worked with people, so I can't imagine not working with people. It's just that real important kind of element to my work, I think.
You mentioned there how you really enjoy your work, and there's a lot going on. So I guess for you, there's not necessarily a typical day. Every day is different, which is probably reasons why you love the job so much.
I do love it for that reason. I think that there's always, because you're working with people, it's always different, and every person is different to the next. So that is definitely something that I really enjoy. But I'm always meeting students every day. I'm always sort of getting a wider understanding of disability. Another thing that I've kind of been working on is that this kind of media stuff and getting our profile out there a bit more.
That's great.
And just talking about it. I think it's really, really important just to kind of have those conversations and to understand that we're not scary people, and that it is hard asking for support. I don't want people to feel like I don't understand that it's difficult to ask for support, but I think once you do, your door's open.
Exactly. It sets that momentum going, doesn't it? It's
absolutely.
like, oh, now I've asked for the support. that's the biggest step to take now.
Absolutely. Yeah, and quite a lot of the time there's loads of support available. And stuff that you just don't know is there.
I think that's the biggest thing we hear a lot from students, is them knowing exactly what is available. So it's like you said, you're really interested in raising the profile and sharing exactly what sort of happens.
Yeah.
So, what is your favourite part of your job so far? Would you say it's things like that visibility, or like being with the students? What's your favourite part at the moment?
I think I really enjoy that bit of being down in the student centre. I'm getting that buzz. I'm feeling that buzz, and I quite like it. I like all the students coming in and asking questions, and you know, that bit is really exciting for me. I can't wait to see what September and October bring. But yeah, I think just being a part of university life again. I studied for such a long time. I started my undergraduate, I did part-time because I was swimming alongside it.
Oh, wow.
So I was at university for a long time. I know higher education really well. But also, if you're here for 3 years, if you're on an undergraduate degree, that's a lot to learn in 3 years.
Yeah.
That's a lot to learn. But there's a lot of students that are, you know, absolutely amazing. And I think just that is my favourite thing about working with people. You see the progression.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
you're so proud of that progression.
Is there like a particular, I know you've only been here for 2 months or so, but is there a particular moment that you're really proud of, like maybe you helped a particular student in a particular way, or?
Yeah, so I think the thing that I'm most proud of is that I'm able to bring all of my knowledge together. So as well as the kind of, I'm a bit of a busybody.
Nothing wrong with that.
Another thing that I do is around accessible information and bringing kind of more visibility to that. I know that we're in higher education and there's a level of expectation when it comes to academic literature and things, but I really have a passion for making sure that things are as accessible as they can be.
Definitely.
And that goes alongside what support is out there, what support can I get if I have a disability, if I have neurodiversity and I'm not quite sure where to go or where to turn. It's a really powerful thing to make sure that language is really you're spoken to in a way that you understand.
Gosh, that is so important. I never really thought about it like that. There's so many terms and
there is, and so many acronyms and you know,
in higher education there definitely is.
There is. And I don't think that we're as aware of it as we maybe should be. I think that I learn every day when I do that sort of work. You learn every day and you're always learning. That's another thing which I kind of always say about that disability world, is that no one person is the same as the next. So you're always learning. Exactly. And that's fun.
Yeah, definitely. So is there any challenges you think you've faced so far, and how would you say you've overcome them?
Challenges. I think that the main thing for me in terms of challenges, it's always difficult to see students struggle. And it's always difficult when you think, oh, I wish that student would come to me.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it?
And, you know, and part of that is building a really good rapport with your students. Definitely. And I think that is something that the University of Suffolk absolutely sings about, is that because we are a smaller university, because we've got a bigger kind of percentage of disabled students and people with different needs, any different need, whether you're an international student, whatever your background, you might be learning something new about yourself, but it's just knowing that you've got that place to go and you're not going to be judged. And obviously some students, this is the first time that they're dealing with all of this stuff without parents involved.
Goodness,
And I think navigating that is slightly an anxiety thing for some students. And it's just being open. It's just, I think, a lot about being visible and being out there so that people know your face.
Definitely. I think that's a big part of our role and our team has been that, about making sure students know where we are and, you know, pushing those barriers down and saying, look, come and speak to us. You might be scary to begin with. You might feel a bit intimidated, but at the end of the day, everybody here is here to support. It's here to, you know, signpost if they need to.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is. Yeah, and I know you said earlier about students come in who might have been in like a secondary school environment where things weren't noticed or diagnosed, and then coming into higher education, you find the majority of people get a diagnosis of something here, because it's just like your team, you know, you've got that capacity to kind of say, actually, these things can be supported. You don't just have to battle through it on your own and things.
And we are learning, you know, as a society, I think we're learning all the time about disability. Our knowledge has grown so much since even I was at school. You know, like our knowledge about all of these, it's so open now. It's such a spectrum. We're not looking at it in boxes anymore. Yeah. So it's really great, I think, that we're able to support students the way that we are, and important to do that.
Absolutely. So it's been really interesting hearing, you know, the passion you had for disability advocacy and you know, the ways in which it's improving. But is this the line of work that you've always been interested in doing, or was there ever anything maybe completely different which you like the idea of? Or?
Yeah, so I did want to be a teacher, which is not that different to working in higher education with students. I never thought that I'd work in higher ed, even when I was...
Same.
It's funny how life works, isn't it? But I wanted to be a primary school teacher when I started at university. That was something that I really wanted to do, and I really, really like working with kids, and I think that it's just an honesty thing with kids, because
they say it like it is.
and also acceptance as well.
Definitely.
I think it's absolutely amazing that kids just accept things. You can tell them, oh, you know, why do you use a wheelchair? Because I get very, very tired, and they're like, oh, okay, and then just run off, and they're happy with it. Like that's. Yeah. I wish that us adults could be more like that.
I'm from the similar background to what you just said, and that is one thing I truly loved about working with children. Like you said, they say what they see.
Yes, and it's brilliant.
And I get really frustrated with adults, like almost hushing them. You're like, no, they don't. Nobody learns without asking a question.
No, absolutely.
As long as you're being respectful about it, and it's not going to, you know, even if it's not necessarily, it's not going to upset the individual, but it's going to raise if it raises your own awareness, you know, ask those questions, you know.
And I think it's always better to ask the question. I know that it can be really awkward sometimes when you're speaking to someone about a disability, as long as you're not asking something that's really, really personal. Oh no. You know, as long as you're not asking something, you know, I don't think that people are going to be afraid to answer questions. I'm not afraid to answer questions. I know that I'm a very open book when it comes to disability, because I think that it's important. But again, going back to that kids conversation, let your kids ask those questions.
Yeah, definitely.
Let your kids run up to the person and ask the question, because that person probably wants people to ask those questions. Definitely. And I always think it gives people it gives me a chance to kind of explain my view on things, and hopefully maybe change perceptions a little bit along the way.
Yeah, as someone with hemiplegia as well, I'm always the same. I'm very open with people, especially when you get kids come up saying, you know, why is your arm like that? It's always been like that. But I'm quite happy to answer questions. Yeah. And I find that most people are, most of my friends as well who've got disabilities, they're always really open. So,
it's just important to have that conversation, and I think that people are seeing it more now. I think that there was something that I read about it taking like 7 generations for our as a society to properly understand something new. Wow. And really, disability is still in that, because it wasn't that long ago that our attitude was completely different to disability, and the same with any neurodiversity. We're at a really, really key stage in learning these things, aren't we? And I think that it's powerful for us to be in that position of we're learning.
I think it's really interesting you saying about generations. I feel like I've had conversations with older generations, and I wish they were more like children, and the way they ask questions, rather than just get, like, say, embarrassed and don't want to ask, and then they're not informed, and they're almost processing old ways of dealing with things, if that makes sense. You're like, no, you need to ask and be in the present and be open about these things. And like you said, I don't ever want to hear people saying, "Oh, don't stare to children," and things like that. It's like, no, they're looking because they want to know.
Curious.
They're curious. Exactly that. Exactly
you know,
that.
It's about talking to that person and normalising that conversation, isn't it?
Exactly that. Exactly.
Not normalising the conversation, because I don't. It's a difficult one, isn't it? It's just about knowledge and being open and really having that discussion. Just opens people's minds up. And I think that's also something that I noticed going back to kind of that conversation about the Paralympics, is I really, really noticed a strong difference this year in the presenters.
Yes.
And the people that they've chosen to present the programme. I just thought it's absolutely fantastic that they're not just any presenter that is off, they're actual athletes or they're previous athletes, and I think that they just bring a whole refreshed look to the Paralympics, and that's who we should be talking to.
Definitely. Yeah, holding these people up, and it's incredible, really. Like I said, I think this year's Paralympics, I've seen the most buzz around, actually.
Yeah.
So I've seen the most social media campaigns on, the most TV, everyone's talking about it. I think I've never heard it spoken about quite so much.
London 2012
was pretty big, wasn't it?
Yeah. I had people I knew as well that were athletes, and it's pretty cool when you know the people that are competing.
It is very, very cool. Thinking back to London 2012, that was a really big time, wasn't it? And I think that we've just carried on from then, and hopefully, it turns into we're going to have these conversations all the time, and hopefully, that is just shown on TV. I think that the media is another really big passion of mine, because I think that it sways people's perceptions of disability a lot. And I think that we're now seeing people on TV that we haven't seen before. We're now seeing disabled actors that are actually disabled.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely amazing. And that's come from the world of social media and this wave of advocacy, like you were saying earlier, that massive advocacy wave that is happening, and people have found their voice. I think that's just amazing.
Is there an actor, is it in Emmerdale that's got cerebral palsy?
Yeah, I think.
Yes, and he's in a new thing that's come out as well. New program that's come out, and I can't remember what it is, but I think, you've just jogged my memory. I remember he talks a lot about that it's amazing. I can't remember his name. I'll have to Google it later. But but like you said, it's that visibility is so important, especially for young people who are maybe who are learning and processing things about like their disability, to have those people.
Because I don't know about you, Sam, but I didn't have that when I was younger. Can you imagine what your life would be like if you saw those people on TV?
So coming back to the uni,
yes.
What advice would you give to new students who are starting in September?
I think if you are... See, the thing is, I completely understand what it's like to be a student. You take in so much information in those first couple of months, and it's okay if lots of it gets lost in your head.
Yeah,
it's really, really okay if that happens, and don't worry about it, because people are here and they understand that happens. But the biggest step I think that you can take is asking for support. And just ask. We've got a phone number, we've got email addresses, all of the teams have. Or you can just pop it, as I say, you can pop into the student centre after one of your lectures, and you can say, I might be struggling with this or that, or is there any support for anything? And I think that it's just such an open team here that there is support there, and that I think even if you're a couple of months in and you're thinking, why is assignment writing so hard? Why is paragraph structure so difficult? That you've got amazing one-to-one tutors in the library that help every student, and anybody can book in with them. Definitely. And that's an amazing thing. We've got our disability and wellbeing relaxed induction coming up on the 12th and 13th.
We're part of that, yes.
Are you? Yeah, brilliant. So things like that. And then you've got the Freshers' Fair, or our Welcome Week, which begins on the 23rd of September. where we're going to be really, really busy.
Yes, yeah.
And we've got your disability and wellbeing kind of supporting your experience sessions. So they're run by our team.
Brilliant, yeah.
So if you were a couple of months in, I suppose you could book into one of them and have a bit more of a class. I know that some people prefer groups.
Yeah.
So if you didn't want a one-on-one, if you wanted to bring a friend, I'm sure that is absolutely facilitated at the university. And then we've also got, I think I might have specific learning difficulties sessions. So that's about sort of ADHD and the support that we can give, because we can provide educational diagnoses for ADHD, and we can also do diagnostic assessments for things like dyslexia as well. So we've got a lot going on, and I really hope that there's going to be some amazing things linked up between the teams this year. I feel like there's going to be some nice events coming, and just for everyone, just to enjoy.
That's brilliant. So just before we move on to the final question, I just wanted to give you the chance to, if there's anything that you want to talk about, whether it be your role or stuff that we've talked about, disability advocacy, or anything you just wanted to mention.
So to access the Disability and Wellbeing Service, you can email student support at uos.ac.uk, or you can give us a ring if you want on 01473 339 084, and that takes you directly to us. But you can also you're more than welcome to phone the Student Centre and Student Life team as well, and you can get to us.
It's good to know you've got someone based in the Student Centre as well, like having that visible person. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that that's really, really important for me going forward, that we make sure that that visibility is there. And especially for onboarding or new students coming in, because I just think that a friendly face is what you want to see.
Definitely.
Another thing that I really wanted to talk about was disabled student voice and how you can get involved in making those decisions with us, because that's something that I really want to bring to the university. It's something that I did in my previous, at my previous university. So I used to set up and run a disabled network.
Oh, wonderful.
Which used to be primarily about getting staff members and students to work together. Because that's such a great thing, and we have a fabulous student union here at University of Suffolk, and they have disabled student officers. I think the posts are still open, so if you really wanted to have a go, and if you've been here for a year, I think that they usually are second year students or third year, and they're a welcoming bunch. You've got the Students with Disability Society as well that you can take part in. I know that there is also a disabled staff network as well. So it would be so great if we could connect all of that up and think about what is really going on at the university. And I think that I always say, because of my background in kind of this work previously, is it's always better to work together. You learn so much more if you work together. Less things are missed, more things are understood.
Well, I mean, the university is very big on students being co-creators of their learning journey. And like you said, student voice is essential in creating that. You want that atmosphere, everyone's working together and listening to each other. So what you've just said is really inspiring, and I really hope that it can be facilitated and everyone can work together,
So I think with my role and what's been discussed so far, I think that is definitely a project area of mine and a real passion. So I hope that kind of materialises and we get some fabulous work.
That's been a really interesting conversation we've had today. So I've come to our final question now, which is our answer one, ask one question. So you're going to answer a question from the previous guest, and you're going to pose one to the next guest. So we've had some really good questions on here.
Brilliant. I have listened to it.
And I think this one is definitely up there as well. So the question we've got for you from the previous guest is, if you look back to your time when you were a student, how did university change you as a person?
Oh, that's such a good
It
question.
is a good
isn't it?
question.
I want to know who asked that question. I think that it made me such a more. I always say it's made me a different person. I was a completely different person before university. It teaches you so much. You have to learn a lot about yourself and about your studies, and that sometimes can feel a little bit scary at the beginning. But you really get into it. I promise. And it's less scary, and I think there's a real power in owning that kind of growth journey that you go on in higher education, and I think that's kind of where I kind of stand on it, is that I've grown so much as a person. I'm able to do things like this, sit in front of a microphone, things that I wouldn't have thought that I would ever do before university. But it is amazing. I think that it's such a personal growth thing, and you're always learning.
That's great. Thanks so much again for joining us today. So until next time, it's goodbye from Elise.
Bye.
Goodbye from Laura.
Bye.
And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye. Thank you for listening to the Student Experience podcast. If you would like to be a future guest, email studentexperienceteam@uos.ac.uk or follow the links to our application form through our Brightspace page. You can also reach out to us through our Instagram page @UOS_student experience.